Standing before the coffin, a millionaire in tears stares at the girl and whispers desperately, "She is my wife. Bring her back, and everything I have will be yours." The child, the gravedigger's daughter, approaches in absolute silence, as if guided by something no one there understands. When she touches the woman's skin, something inexplicable happens, and what was mourning begins to turn into doubt. Everyone present was completely shocked. Watch until the end to see what happens. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The grand marble chapel of Oakwood Memorial Gardens stood in solemn dignity against the backdrop of Newport, Rhode Island's misty coastline. Inside, under the soft glow of antique chandeliers, billionaire Robert Harrington clutched the polished edge of an elegant mahogany casket. His wife Eleanor lay inside, dressed in black silk, her face serene as if in peaceful slumber. The official diagnosis: a sudden cardiac event. Despite her impeccable health records and rigorous fitness regimen, Robert's powerful shoulders, accustomed to commanding boardrooms and steering his shipping empire, now trembled uncontrollably. Tears streamed down his weathered face, each line etched by decades of high-stakes business decisions. But none of those decisions had prepared him for this, the sudden absence of his partner of 22 years. "She was fine yesterday morning," he whispered to himself, his voice breaking. "We had breakfast on the terrace. She was planning the summer charity gala." Beside him stood his only daughter, 19-year-old Abigail, her refined features maintaining their elegance even in grief. Her perfectly manicured hands clutched those of her boyfriend, Jason Matthews, a handsome Princeton senior whose family owned considerable real estate along the eastern seaboard. Jason maintained a protective stance, his eyes downcast, occasionally wiping what appeared to be tears with his monogrammed handkerchief. "Daddy, please sit down," Abigail urged, her voice quavering. "You haven't slept in 2 days." "I can't leave her," Robert replied, his gaze never leaving Eleanor's face. "I keep thinking she'll open her eyes." The chapel door creaked open, admitting a small figure that would alter everyone's destiny. 10-year-old Lily Johnson, daughter of the cemetery's groundskeeper, stepped quietly into the room. Unlike most children who avoided these solemn spaces, Lily possessed a natural reverence for them. Having grown up alongside her father's work, she had developed an intuitive understanding of the thin veil between worlds. Her dark eyes, wise beyond their years, took in the scene with uncommon perception. She moved with the grace of someone who understood the sacred nature of grief, her small feet making no sound on the marble floor. The adults barely noticed her entrance, accustomed to the groundskeeper's daughter making her rounds with respectful prayers for the departed. As Lily approached the casket to perform her customary ritual, a simple prayer her grandmother had taught her, something unusual caught her attention. Standing on tiptoe to see inside, she noticed Eleanor's complexion retained a subtle warmth, not the alabaster pallor she had observed in others. The woman's lips maintained a natural rosy tint, as if blood still circulated beneath them. Following an impulse she couldn't explain, Lily discreetly reached out and placed her small fingers against Eleanor's neck, using the technique her father had inadvertently taught her through years of observation. What she felt sent a jolt through her small frame, a pulse. Faint, barely perceptible but unmistakably present. "She's not gone," Lily whispered, then looked up at Robert with wide, certain eyes. "Sir, she's not gone. I can feel her heartbeat." Robert's head snapped up, his expression transforming from grief to confusion. "What did you say?" "That's enough," interjected Jason, stepping forward. "Mr. Harrington doesn't need this right now." But Lily persisted, her voice gaining strength. "Please listen. I've been around many who have passed. She's different. She's still here, just trapped somehow." The small gathering of mourners began to murmur, some with disapproval, others with uncomfortable pity for what they perceived as a child's misunderstanding of finality. "Lily, that's inappropriate." Her father, Samuel Johnson, hurried forward from where he'd been respectfully waiting by the door. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Harrington. She doesn't mean any harm." "No, Dad, please." Lily pulled away from her father's gentle grasp. "I need to help her." Before anyone could stop her, she began performing chest compressions with her small hands, pressing rhythmically against Eleanor's silk-covered chest. Gasps of shock echoed through the chapel. Abigail let out a distressed cry. "Make her stop!" Samuel rushed forward to pull his daughter away, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Lily, this is not acceptable." But something in Robert's expression changed as he watched the determined child. A flicker of desperate hope crossed his features. "Wait," he said, raising his hand. Let her try." Driven by pure intuition, Lily suddenly darted away, rushing through the chapel doors and across the manicured cemetery grounds. She ran to an ancient stone fountain that stood in the Garden of Remembrance, plunging a decorative silver urn into its cold waters. Ignoring the calls behind her, she raced back, water sloshing from the container. With childlike agility, she climbed onto a nearby chair and, before anyone could intervene, poured the entire contents over Eleanor's still form. The sound of water splashing against silk and wood resonated like thunder in the stunned silence. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then a miracle. Eleanor's body convulsed with a violent cough. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened, revealing confused blue eyes. Her lips parted and she whispered her husband's name so softly that only those closest could hear. "Eleanor." Robert's cry was primal, a sound of disbelief and overwhelming joy. He gathered his drenched wife into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "She's alive! Call an ambulance!" The chapel erupted into chaos, some screaming in shock, others rushing to help, a few backing away in superstitious fear. Abigail stood frozen, her face drained of color, while Jason gripped her arm so tightly his knuckles turned white. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, confirming what Lily had somehow known. Eleanor Harrington was indeed alive, though in a precarious state requiring immediate medical attention. As they transferred her to a stretcher, Robert grasped Lily's small shoulders, tears streaming down his face. "You saved her," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know how you knew, but you saved my Eleanor." Lily simply nodded, the wisdom in her young eyes somehow both childlike and ancient. "She wasn't ready to leave yet," she said simply. "Sometimes people get trapped between here and there. They just need help finding their way back." As Eleanor was rushed to Newport's prestigious Atlantic Medical Center, Robert insisted that Lily and her father accompany them. "I want her near," he said firmly when Samuel hesitated. "She saw what all of us missed." In the hospital waiting room, while doctors assessed Eleanor's condition, Robert made a solemn promise to the young girl who had performed the impossible. "Whatever you ever need for the rest of your life, it's yours. You've given me back my world." Behind them, Abigail sat rigidly in a corner chair, her mascara-streaked face unreadable as she repeatedly checked her phone. Jason paced nearby, his earlier protective demeanor replaced by a tense, calculating expression as he watched the doctors rush in and out of Eleanor's room. Neither noticed Dr. Catherine Winters, studying Eleanor's initial blood work with increasing alarm, her experienced eyes narrowing at readings that suggested something far more sinister than a natural medical event. Dr. Catherine Winters had seen many medical mysteries in her 25 years at Atlantic Medical Center, but Eleanor Harrington's case defied conventional explanation. Standing in the hospital's state-of-the-art laboratory, she scrutinized the toxicology report for the 3rd time. "These readings can't be right," she muttered to her colleague, Dr. James Patel. "Run them again." "We already did," he replied, adjusting his glasses. "Twice, it's definitely GH45. Catherine's blood ran cold. GH45 was a rare experimental compound developed for therapeutic hypothermia in trauma patients. In controlled doses, it slowed metabolic functions to preserve brain tissue. In higher amounts, it could induce a state nearly indistinguishable from clinical absence of life, maintaining victims in apparent unconsciousness for up to 4 days while their vital signs became almost undetectable. "That's impossible," Catherine whispered. "GH45 is only produced at 3 research facilities in the country, all under strict government oversight. The paperwork alone requires presidential-level clearance." "And yet," Dr. Patel gestured to the results, "it's in her system, administered approximately 36 hours ago, based on these degradation markers." Catherine leaned against the counter, processing the implications. If that little girl hadn't intervened, Mrs. Harrington would have been laid to rest while still alive. Dr. Patel finished grimly. "The compound would have metabolized naturally after about 4 days, but by then—" "We need to alert the authorities," Catherine decided, reaching for the phone. "And we need to tell Robert Harrington." In the private waiting room upstairs, Robert sat beside Lily. who was enjoying a hot chocolate provided by a kind nurse. Samuel Johnson stood nearby, still processing the extraordinary events. "I still don't understand how you knew," Robert said gently to Lily. The girl shrugged, chocolate mustache adorning her upper lip. "I just felt it. When my dad works, I sometimes help him. You learn to notice things." She hesitated. "The people who have truly passed on feel different, cold, empty." Mrs. Harrington still felt present. Samuel placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Lily's always been special that way. Her grandmother was the same." Across the room, Abigail paced nervously, her designer heels clicking against the tile floor. Jason sat hunched over his phone, his expression tense. "This is taking forever," Abigail complained. "I need to know if Mom's going to be okay." "The doctors are doing everything they can," Robert assured her, though his own worry was evident in the lines creasing his forehead. The door opened, and Dr. Winters entered, her expression grave. "Mr. Harrington, may I speak with you privately?" "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of everyone," Robert replied, gripping the armrests of his chair. "These people saved Eleanor's life." Catherine hesitated, glancing at Lily and then at Abigail and Jason. Perhaps the young lady would like to visit the cafeteria. "I'm not hungry," Lily replied simply. "She means me," Abigail said, rolling her eyes. "And I'm not leaving. Mom is my mother too." Catherine took a deep breath. "Very well, Mr. Harrington, your wife's condition wasn't natural. Our tests have detected a substance called GH45 in her system." "What's that?" Robert demanded. "It's a highly controlled research compound that simulates clinical absence of life while maintaining minimal cellular function. It's virtually undetectable without specific testing protocols. We only recognized it because Atlantic Medical participated in its early development phases." Robert's face darkened. "Are you saying someone deliberately did this to Eleanor?" Catherine nodded gravely. "The compound doesn't occur naturally and cannot be accidentally ingested. Someone with sophisticated knowledge and access administered it to your wife, likely intending for her to be interred while still alive." The room fell silent. Abigail swayed slightly, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I've already contacted the FBI," Catherine continued. "This substance is federally controlled. They're sending agents now to begin an investigation." Robert's grief transformed into rage before their eyes. Who would do this? Who could possibly want to hurt Eleanor? From her seat, Lily watched as Jason's hand tightened around his phone until his knuckles turned white. His eyes darted to the door, calculating. "Is this compound traceable?" Robert asked. "Can we find out who purchased it?" "That's the thing," Dr. Winters replied. "GH45 is only manufactured at 3 facilities nationwide, all under strict government supervision. Every microgram is accounted for. The FBI should be able to track exactly who accessed it." Abigail suddenly stood up. "I need some air," she announced, her voice trembling. "Jason, come with me." "Miss Harrington, I'm afraid the FBI agents will want to speak with everyone who was close to your mother," Dr. Winters said gently. "It would be better if you stayed." Jason stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We're being treated like suspects when we should be celebrating Mrs. Harrington's recovery." Lily's clear voice cut through the tension. "You're afraid?" All eyes turned to the young girl who was studying Jason with unnerving intensity. "Excuse me?" Jason's tone was cold. "You're afraid," Lily repeated calmly. "I can see it. Like when Dad finds rabbits in the cemetery and they know they're cornered." Samuel placed a warning hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Lily, that's enough." But Robert was watching Jason now, seeing him through new eyes. "Why would you be afraid, Jason? Unless you know something about this?" "This is absurd," Jason scoffed, but his confidence seemed to waver. "Come on, Abby. Let's get out of here." He reached for Abigail's arm, but she pulled away, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. "Jason, what's going on?" Before he could answer, 2 FBI agents in dark suits entered the room, accompanied by hospital security. "Robert Harrington?" the female agent asked, showing her credentials. "I'm Special Agent Diana Chen, and this is Special Agent Marcus Torres. We're here about your wife's case." "Thank you for coming so quickly," Robert said, rising to his feet. "We've been tracking GH45 very closely," Agent Torres explained. "Any unauthorized use triggers immediate response." Agent Chen surveyed the room. We'll need to speak with everyone who had close contact with Mrs. Harrington in the past week, starting with family members. Of course, Robert agreed. Whatever you need to find who did this. Actually, Agent Chen said, consulting her tablet, we already have some preliminary information. The Newport police executed a search warrant on your residence while we were en route. They found something concerning in one of the bedrooms. Abigail paled visibly, backing away until she bumped into the wall. Jason's hand moved subtly toward his jacket pocket. Abby? Robert's voice broke as he looked at his daughter. What did they find? Agent Torres stepped forward. Sir, evidence suggests the GH-45 was stored in your daughter's vanity drawer. We found traces of the compound and documentation related to its effects. The world seemed to stop for Robert. No, he whispered, there must be some mistake. There's no mistake, Lily said quietly, her young voice carrying a wisdom beyond her years. Look at their faces. They knew. All eyes turned to Abigail and Jason. Abigail's composure crumbled, tears streaming down her face. But Jason's expression hardened as he slowly backed toward the door. Jason Matthews, Agent Chen said firmly, please keep your hands where we can see them. Instead, Jason lunged for the door, but Samuel Johnson, with the quick reflexes of a man accustomed to physical labor, moved faster. He blocked the exit, his solid frame an immovable barrier. Don't make this worse, son, Samuel warned, his voice gentle but firm. Jason froze, trapped between Samuel and the federal agents. His hand had slipped into his jacket, and Agent Torres immediately drew his weapon. Hands where we can see them now, he commanded. What happened next occurred in a blur. Jason pulled out not a weapon, but a small glass vial, raising it to his own mouth. With lightning speed, Lily darted forward and struck his arm, sending the vial flying across the room where it shattered against the wall. No! Jason lunged for the girl, but Agent Torres tackled him to the ground, securing his wrists with handcuffs. Jason Matthews, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and possession of a controlled substance, Agent Chen recited, as her partner restrained the struggling young man. Abigail slid down the wall to the floor, her sobs echoing through the room. I never wanted to hurt her, she wailed. It was just supposed to scare her, to make her understand. Robert stood immobile, his world collapsing for the second time in 48 hours. Understand what, Abigail? What could possibly justify this? Agent Chen gently approached Abigail. Miss Harrington, you have the right to remain silent. As the agents continued the Miranda warning, Lily moved to Robert's side and slipped her small hand into his. The billionaire looked down at the child who had saved his wife and exposed a betrayal he couldn't yet comprehend. Sometimes, Lily said softly, people get lost in darkness they create themselves. Eleanor Harrington's hospital room was a sanctuary of soft beeping monitors and hushed voices. 3 days after her miraculous revival, she sat propped against pristine pillows, her natural elegance somehow intact despite her ordeal. Robert hadn't left her side, sleeping in the uncomfortable recliner by her bed, his hand perpetually entwined with hers, as if afraid she might slip away again. You should go home. Get some real rest, Eleanor urged, her voice still raspy from the intubation she'd required during her first critical hours. Home is wherever you are, Robert replied simply. The past days had stripped away his corporate veneer, revealing the devoted husband beneath the billionaire facade. A gentle knock interrupted their moment. Dr. Winters entered, accompanied by Lily and Samuel Johnson. The young girl carried a small bouquet of wildflowers, clearly handpicked from the cemetery grounds. Look who asked to visit, Dr. Winters smiled. I thought a brief visit might be beneficial for everyone. Eleanor's face brightened. The miracle worker herself, please come in. Lily approached the bed shyly, presenting the wildflowers. These are for you, Mrs. Harrington. The purple ones grow near the oak trees where the butterflies like to rest. Eleanor accepted them with genuine delight. They're beautiful, Lily, and please call me Eleanor. She studied the child's face with wonderment. Robert told me everything you did. How did you know I was still here? Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I just knew, like how you know when someone's watching you, even if your eyes are closed. A sixth sense, Samuel explained, standing proudly behind his daughter. Her grandmother had it too. Could sense things others couldn't. Robert cleared his throat, emotion making his voice rough. We can never repay what you've done for us, But I want you to know that your future is secure. College, housing, whatever you need, it's yours." Samuel began to protest, but Eleanor raised her hand. "Please, Samuel, allow us this. Your daughter gave us back our lives." The conversation shifted as Dr. Winters reviewed Eleanor's chart. "Your recovery is remarkable. The GH45 compound is metabolizing properly, and your organ function is returning to normal parameters. We'd like to keep you one more night for observation, but you should be able to go home tomorrow." "Home," Eleanor repeated, her expression clouding. "Robert, have you spoken to Abigail today?" The room fell silent. Robert's jaw tightened, and he looked away. It was Dr. Winters who finally spoke. "Mrs. Harrington, perhaps we should discuss your daughter's situation when you're stronger." "I'm strong enough now," Eleanor insisted, her voice suddenly firm. "I've been conscious for 3 days and no one will tell me where my daughter is or what's happening with her case. I deserve to know." Robert sighed heavily, the weight of betrayal evident in his posture. "She's at the Newport County Detention Center awaiting arraignment. Her bail hearing is tomorrow, and you haven't visited her." It wasn't a question. "How could I?" Robert's voice broke. "She tried to—" He stopped, glancing at Lily. Understanding passed between the adults. Samuel gently touched his daughter's shoulder. "Lily, why don't we go find some dinner? I bet they have chocolate pudding in the cafeteria." After they left, Eleanor turned to her husband. "Tell me everything, Robert. No more protecting me." For the next half hour, Robert and Dr. Winters explained the details of what had happened: the GH45 compound, the evidence found in Abigail's room, Jason's attempted escape and subsequent arrest. Eleanor listened silently, tears streaming down her face. "But why?" she finally whispered. "What did I do to make her hate me so much?" "According to the preliminary investigation," Robert said carefully, "Jason convinced her that you were controlling her life, preventing her from making her own choices. He apparently spent months poisoning her mind against you, framing you as an obstacle to their happiness." "That manipulative—" Eleanor stopped herself. "And the compound? How did they access something so restricted?" Dr. Winters hesitated. "That's what's most disturbing. Jason's uncle works at Meridian Pharmaceuticals, one of the 3 facilities licensed to produce GH45 for research purposes. The FBI believes Jason used his uncle's security credentials to access the laboratory after hours." "The security footage confirms it," Robert added grimly. "I stole enough to ensure you wouldn't wake up." Eleanor closed her eyes, absorbing the horror of what her own daughter had participated in. "I need to see her," she said finally. "Eleanor, no," Robert protested. "After what she did." "She's our daughter, Robert." Eleanor's voice was soft but unwavering. "Something went terribly wrong, but she's still our child. I need to understand." Before Robert could argue further, there was another knock at the door. Agent Chen entered, her professional demeanor slightly softened. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm glad to see you recovering. I apologize for the intrusion, but we have some developments in your case that you should be aware of. Please come in," Eleanor invited. Agent Chen approached the bed. "We've completed our initial interrogation of both suspects. Jason Matthews is maintaining his innocence despite overwhelming evidence, but your daughter has been more forthcoming." "She's cooperating?" Robert asked, surprise evident in his voice. "Yes. She's provided a full statement detailing how Jason systematically manipulated her over the past 10 months. We've recovered text messages and emails that support her account. He isolated her from friends, convinced her that you, Mrs. Harrington, were deliberately sabotaging her relationship and controlling her inheritance." "That's absurd," Eleanor protested. "I've never interfered with her trust fund. It's hers when she turns 21, regardless of anything else." "Jason told her otherwise," Agent Chen explained. "He fabricated conversations, even forged emails supposedly from your family attorney discussing changes to the trust. He was very methodical." Robert's hands clenched into fists. "He planned this from the beginning, targeted our daughter to get to our money." "It appears so," Agent Chen confirmed. "His financial records show mounting gambling debts and failed investments. According to Abigail, he became increasingly desperate, convincing her that if you were temporarily removed from the picture, they could access her inheritance early through emergency provisions." "But there are no such provisions," Robert said. Exactly. The plan was never meant to succeed on those terms. We believe Jason intended to disappear with whatever valuables he could convince Abigail to take after your situation was settled. Eleanor shuddered. He would have abandoned her. Most likely. We found a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands in his email, purchased just for himself, departing the day after your planned funeral. The room fell silent as the full scope of Jason's betrayal became clear. Robert paced the small space, his anger palpable. "What happens now?" Eleanor finally asked. "Finally, Jason Matthews will face multiple serious charges, including attempted murder, conspiracy, theft of controlled substances, and identity fraud. Given the evidence, the prosecutor is confident in securing a conviction." "And Abigail?" Eleanor's voice trembled. Agent Chen's expression softened slightly. "Your daughter's situation is more complex. She participated in a serious crime, but there's clear evidence of psychological manipulation. The prosecutor is considering a plea arrangement that would include mandatory psychiatric treatment and a reduced sentence." "She needs help, not prison," Eleanor insisted. "The FBI is inclined to agree," Agent Chen replied. "Her full cooperation has been valuable in building the case against Matthews, and her genuine remorse is evident." Robert finally stopped pacing. "Can we see her? I've actually arranged for a supervised visit tomorrow morning if Mrs. Harrington feels up to it. I believed it might be therapeutic for everyone involved." Eleanor reached for Robert's hand. "Thank you, Agent Chen. We'll be there." After the agent departed, Robert sat heavily in the chair beside Eleanor's bed. "I don't know if I can forgive her," he admitted, his voice raw. "Neither do I," Eleanor replied softly. "But we have to try. She lost her way, Robert. We need to help her find it again." They sat in silence, the magnitude of what lay ahead weighing heavily on them both. The fragile peace was interrupted by another knock. Lily had returned, clutching a small paper cup. "I brought you pudding," she announced, presenting it to Eleanor. "Chocolate makes everything better. That's what my dad always says." Despite everything, Eleanor found herself smiling at the child's simple wisdom. "Your father is a very wise man, Lily." The young girl climbed onto the chair beside the bed, her legs dangling above the floor. "Is your daughter in trouble?" she asked directly, with the innocent bluntness of childhood. Robert and Eleanor exchanged glances, uncertain how to respond. "Yes," Eleanor finally answered. "She made some very bad choices because she believed things that weren't true." Lily considered this seriously. "Like when Tommy Wilkins told me the cemetery angels would hurt me if I didn't give him my lunch money." Samuel, who had just entered, looked alarmed. "Tommy Wilkins did what?" "It's okay, Dad," Lily assured him. "I told him angels protect people, they don't hurt them. Then I kept my lunch money." "Sometimes," Eleanor said carefully, "grown-ups can be fooled too, especially when someone they trust tells them lies for a long time." Lily nodded sagely. "People can get lost in the dark, but they can find their way back if someone helps them see the light again." The profound simplicity of the child's perspective hung in the air, offering a glimmer of hope amid the devastation of betrayal. Robert studied the remarkable young girl who had saved his wife's life and now, perhaps, was showing them the path to healing their broken family. "Out of the mouths of babes," he murmured, a tear slipping down his cheek. The Newport County Detention Center stood like a modern fortress against the morning fog, its institutional architecture a stark contrast to the elegant mansions that lined the nearby coast. Eleanor sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Robert's Range Rover, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Although Dr. Winters had approved her release, she still looked fragile, her normally vibrant complexion pale against her navy silk blouse. "We don't have to do this today," Robert said gently, turning off the engine. "You've been through enough." Eleanor shook her head. "No more delays. Our daughter needs us now more than ever." They were escorted through security by Agent Chen, whose professional demeanor softened slightly when she saw Eleanor's unsteady gait. "The meeting room is private, but monitored," she explained, leading them down a sterile hallway. "Take as much time as you need." The visitation room was designed to feel less institutional than the rest of the facility, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting, but nothing could disguise its true purpose. Eleanor's breath caught when the side door opened and Abigail entered, accompanied by a female officer. Gone was the polished socialite who had stood sobbing in the hospital. This Abigail wore a standard-issue jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face scrubbed of makeup. She looked younger, vulnerable, and terrified. "Mom!" Her voice broke on the single syllable. For a moment, no one moved. Then Eleanor opened her arms and Abigail rushed into them, dissolving into sobs against her mother's shoulder. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," she cried, the words tumbling out between gasps. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought he made me believe—" "Shh," Eleanor soothed, stroking her daughter's hair. "We're here now." Robert stood apart, his expression unreadable as he watched his wife comfort the daughter who had nearly taken her from him forever. When Abigail finally looked up at him, her eyes pleading for forgiveness, he turned away, unable to meet her gaze. "Dad?" The broken whisper hung in the air between them. Eleanor gave her husband a meaningful look. After a long moment, Robert stepped forward and awkwardly patted Abigail's shoulder. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement, a start. They sat at the small table, the family fractured but present. Abigail wiped her tears with the back of her hand, looking suddenly like the little girl who had once run to them with scraped knees and playground injustices. "The prosecutor's office has offered me a deal," she said, her voice steadier. "If I testify against Jason, they'll recommend a reduced sentence with mandatory psychiatric treatment instead of prison time." "And you'll take it?" Robert asked, speaking directly to her for the first time. Abigail nodded. "Yes. I've already given them everything I know. The text messages, the emails, how he gradually isolated me from my friends." She paused, shame coloring her cheeks. "How he convinced me that Mom was changing the trust fund to cut me off if I stayed with him." "I would never do that," Eleanor said softly. "I know that now," Abigail admitted, "but Jason was so convincing. He showed me forged emails, had friends call pretending to be from the bank, even staged conversations he claimed to have overheard." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He made me believe I was protecting our future together." "By harming your mother?" Robert's voice was sharp. "He said it would just be temporary," Abigail pleaded, "that she'd be hospitalized briefly, and during that time, we could secure an emergency release of funds due to family medical crisis. He had documents that looked real, showing how it could be done." Her shoulders slumped. "I never checked if those provisions actually existed. I just trusted him." "How did you get the GH45? Eleanor asked quietly. Abigail's face crumpled. "Jason handled that part. He said his uncle worked at the lab that made it. He used his uncle's ID after hours." She hesitated. "I didn't know it would make you appear gone. He told me it was just a powerful sedative that would require hospitalization." "But you put it in my evening tea," Eleanor said, the betrayal fresh in her voice. "Yes," Abigail whispered, unable to meet her mother's eyes. "I've replayed that moment 1,000 times since then. I don't know how I could have done it. Hurts like I was another person, someone desperate and blind." Robert finally leaned forward. "The agent said Jason had a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands. Just one ticket." The color drained from Abigail's face. "What?" "He was planning to leave you behind, Abby, after everything was done." "No," she shook her head in denial. "He wouldn't. We were going to be married. He promised." "He lied about everything else," Robert said bluntly. "Why not that too?" The devastating truth hung in the air between them. Abigail's world, already shattered, crumbled further as this final betrayal sank in. "The attorneys believe you were a victim of coercive control," Eleanor said gently. "It doesn't excuse what happened, but it helps explain it." "I should have been stronger," Abigail whispered. "It can happen to anyone." Eleanor reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. "Even smart, educated women can be manipulated by someone they trust." Robert cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have discussed your situation with our attorneys. We're prepared to support the plea agreement and help with your defense on one condition." Abigail looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "You will complete the full psychiatric treatment program. No shortcuts, no excuses. You need to understand how you became vulnerable to this kind of manipulation, so it never happens again." "Of course," Abigail agreed quickly. "I'll do anything." "And," Eleanor added, "when this is over, we want you to work with the foundation. There are many young women who could benefit from hearing your story, learning the warning signs of manipulation and coercive control." For the first time, Abigail's expression showed something beyond despair, a spark of purpose. "I would like that, to help prevent others from making my mistakes." The rest of the visit passed in discussion of legal strategies and treatment options. As they prepared to leave, Abigail clutched her mother's hand. "The little girl who saved you, Lily, is she okay?" Eleanor smiled. "She's remarkable, wise beyond her years. Would you thank her for me?" Abigail asked hesitantly. "If she hadn't been there." "We'll tell her," Eleanor promised. Outside in the parking lot, Robert helped Eleanor into the car, the morning's emotional weight evident in their movements. They drove in silence for several minutes before Eleanor spoke. "She's still our daughter, Robert." "I know," he replied, his hands tight on the steering wheel, "but every time I look at her, I see you lying in that casket. If it weren't for Lily, but I'm here." Eleanor touched his arm. "Thanks to Lily's extraordinary perception, we've been given a second chance, all of us." Robert glanced at his wife, the love of his life who had been so nearly taken from him. "It will take time." "We have time," she assured him. "That's the gift Lily gave us." As they drove through Newport's historic streets, the stately homes and manicured gardens seemed different somehow, the colors more vibrant, the air sweeter. Near the harbor, Robert suddenly pulled over. "There's something I need to do," he said, reaching for his phone. After a brief conversation, he turned to Eleanor. "Samuel and Lily are meeting us for lunch. I want to discuss something with them." An hour later, they sat in a private dining room at the Chandlery, one of Newport's finest seafood restaurants. Lily looked slightly uncomfortable in her Sunday dress, but her natural dignity remained intact as she carefully navigated the multiple forks beside her plate. "This fish is really good," she announced after her first bite of grilled salmon. "Dad usually just makes fish sticks." Samuel chuckled, equally out of place in his one good suit. "We don't get to places like this often." "Well, that's about to change," Robert said, setting down his water glass. "Eleanor and I have been talking, and we have a proposition for you both." Samuel looked wary. "Mr. Harrington, while we appreciate your gratitude, we don't need charity." "It's not charity," Eleanor assured him. "It's opportunity, and perhaps a bit of selfishness on our part." Robert nodded. "The Harrington Foundation funds educational initiatives for promising students. We'd like to establish a full scholarship in Lily's name for her future education. Any school, any program she chooses." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Even veterinary school?" "I want to help animals someday, especially veterinary school," Eleanor smiled. "But that's not all. Samuel, we understand you've been working multiple jobs to make ends meet since your wife passed." Samuel looked down. "It's been challenging, especially with childcare. The foundation has an opening for a grounds and facilities manager at our Newport campus," Robert continued. "The position comes with a substantial salary and a residence on the property. Lily would have access to the best schools in the area." Samuel seemed speechless, looking from Robert to Eleanor in disbelief. "Before you answer," Eleanor added softly, "there's one more thing, a selfish request, really." She reached across the table to touch Lily's hand. "We've grown quite fond of you both. The house on the foundation campus has 3 bedrooms, far more than the 2 of you need. I find myself needing regular monitoring during my recovery. We thought perhaps you might consider allowing me to stay in the guest suite a few days each week, just until I'm fully myself again." The pretext was transparent, but offered with such dignity that Samuel couldn't refuse without causing offense. It was a graceful way to help without wounding his pride. "That would be an honor, Mrs. Harrington," he said finally, "if you're sure we're the right fit for the position. Call me Eleanor, please, and yes, we're certain." She squeezed Lily's hand. "Sometimes people enter our lives at exactly the moment we need them most." Lily beamed, understanding more than the adults might have expected. "Does this mean I can visit you whenever I want? And bring you more wildflowers?" "Absolutely," Eleanor smiled. "I think we were meant to be friends, Lily Johnson. Some connections transcend ordinary explanation." As they finished their meal, the unlikely quartet began making plans for the future, a future that none of them could have imagined just days before. Outside, the Newport fog had lifted, revealing a crystalline blue sky over the harbor. A new beginning, washed clean by truth and the extraordinary perception of a child who saw beyond appearances. 6 months had transformed the guest cottage on the Harrington Foundation campus. Once a rarely used accommodation for visiting scholars, it now resonated with life. Colorful curtains hung in windows that had long been shrouded, and a vegetable garden flourished, where ornamental shrubs had previously dominated. On this crisp autumn afternoon, Lily sat cross-legged on the front porch, a massive textbook open before her, making notes while her rescued tabby cat, Professor, lounged in a patch of sunlight beside her. "That's a serious book for someone your age," Eleanor observed, emerging from the main house with a tray of lemonade and cookies. Lily glanced up, her smile revealing a recently lost tooth. "It's about animal anatomy. Dr. Brennan from the university let me borrow it after I asked about why Professor limps sometimes." Eleanor set the tray down on the wicker table. "And what did you learn?" "That it's probably an old fracture that healed wrong, but it doesn't hurt him anymore." Lily stroked the cat, who responded with a rumbling purr. "Sometimes injuries leave marks that stay forever, but they don't have to cause pain anymore." Eleanor's eyes softened at the unintentional wisdom. "That's very profound, Lily." "Is Abigail coming today?" Lily asked, reaching for a cookie. "Yes, her therapy session ends at 3. Robert is picking her up." The mention of Abigail no longer caused the sharp pain it once had. Under the terms of her plea agreement, she had been sentenced to 2 years of intensive psychiatric treatment and community service instead of incarceration. She now lived in a supervised residential facility, undergoing daily therapy, while volunteering at a women's shelter, where she shared her experience with coercive control. "I made her a card," Lily announced, pulling a folded construction paper from her book. "To celebrate her 6 months of getting better." Eleanor examined the colorful creation, touched by Lily's compassion. "That's very thoughtful. I'm sure she'll love it." Samuel emerged from the cottage, wiping his hands on a towel. In the months since accepting the position with the Harrington Foundation, he had flourished. His natural intelligence and work ethic had quickly made him indispensable, and his role had expanded beyond facilities management to include coordination of the Foundation's community outreach programs. "The new irrigation system is installed," he reported. "Should make maintaining the memorial garden much easier." "Thank you, Samuel. I don't know how we managed before you came along." Eleanor's gratitude was genuine. The Johnsons had brought healing to the Harrington household in ways that transcended Lily's miraculous intervention. "Dad's teaching the scholarship students how to build birdhouses this afternoon," Lily said proudly. "He says it teaches geometry and life skills at the same time." "Your father is a wise man," Eleanor agreed, watching as Samuel checked his watch. "Speaking of which, I should head over to the workshop. The students will be arriving soon." He hesitated. "Will you be all right with Abigail's visit? I can reschedule the class if you need support." "We'll be fine," Eleanor assured him. "It gets easier each time." She didn't add that Robert still struggled, maintaining a polite but distant relationship with their daughter. Some wounds healed more slowly than others. After Samuel departed, Eleanor and Lily sat in comfortable silence, watching butterflies dance among the late-blooming flowers. Their relationship had evolved naturally over the months, transcending the dramatic circumstances of their first meeting. Eleanor had found in Lily a kindred spirit, someone who saw the world with unusual clarity and accepted its complexities without judgment. "You're thinking about that day again," Lily observed, her perception as acute as ever. Eleanor nodded. "How did you know?" "Your eyes get far away and you touch your throat right here," Lily demonstrated. "Like you're checking to make sure your heart's still beating." "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," Eleanor admitted. "Being trapped in darkness, hearing voices but unable to respond. And then the shock of cold water and suddenly, breath." "You were caught between worlds," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Not everyone comes back." Eleanor studied the remarkable child beside her. "How do you understand such things at your age, Lily?" The girl shrugged. "I don't know. I just always have. Dad says Grandma was the same way." "Your grandmother must have been extraordinary." "She was." Lily closed her book. "She taught me that everyone has light inside them, but sometimes people forget how to see it. That's why cemeteries aren't scary. They're just places where the bodies rest, while the light goes somewhere else." Before Eleanor could respond to this profound observation, the crunch of tires on gravel announced Robert's return. Moments later, his Range Rover pulled up, and Abigail stepped out, followed by Robert. The transformation in Abigail was remarkable. Gone was the polished debutante with perfect highlights and designer clothes. This Abigail wore simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. But the most significant change was in her eyes. Clearer now, more present. without the desperate need for approval that had made her vulnerable to manipulation. "Mom," she called, hurrying forward to embrace Eleanor. "You look wonderful." "As do you," Eleanor replied warmly. "The program seems to be agreeing with you." "It's challenging," Abigail admitted. "But good, really good." She noticed Lily watching them. "Hello, Lily, it's nice to see you again." Lily approached with her characteristic directness, offering the homemade card. "This is for you, for 6 months of getting better." Abigail accepted it with genuine appreciation. "Thank you, that means a lot to me." She glanced at her father, who maintained a careful distance. "Hi, Dad." Robert nodded, his expression guarded but not hostile. "Abigail, how was your session today?" "Productive. Dr. Martinez thinks I'm making good progress on recognizing manipulation tactics." She attempted a smile. "Apparently, I can now spot a love bomber from 50 paces." The joke fell flat, and awkward silence descended until Eleanor intervened. "Why don't we all have some lemonade? It's too beautiful a day to spend indoors." As they settled around the patio table, Lily sensed the tension and decided to help. "Mr. Harrington, did you know there's a family of rabbits living under the workshop? Dad says they're Eastern cottontails." Robert's expression softened as he turned to the young girl. "Is that so? Have you named them yet?" "Of course," Lily replied seriously. "The mother is Beatrix, like Beatrix Potter who wrote about Peter Rabbit. And the babies are Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail." "Very appropriate," Robert smiled, the first genuine smile since arriving. "Perhaps you could show me after our visit." While Robert and Lily discussed the rabbit family, Eleanor turned to Abigail. "Tell me about your work at the shelter. Is it what you expected?" Abigail's expression grew thoughtful. "It's harder and more rewarding than I imagined. The women there, some of their stories make what happened to me seem mild in comparison, but they're so strong, Mom. Even the ones who've lost everything somehow find the courage to start over." "Like you," Eleanor said softly. "I don't know about that," Abigail demurred. "I had advantages they didn't. Supportive parents, resources, legal help. Nevertheless, it takes courage to confront your mistakes and rebuild." Abigail glanced at her father, who was listening to Lily describe the rabbit's feeding habits. "Some things can't be rebuilt," she whispered. Eleanor followed her gaze. "Give him time. He's trying." "I know, and I deserve his distrust." She squared her shoulders. "But that's not why I wanted to see you today. I have news." "Oh?" "The prosecutor contacted me yesterday. Jason's trial date is set for next month. They need me to testify." Eleanor's hand tightened around her glass. "Are you prepared for that?" "As much as anyone can be," Abigail replied. "Dr. Martinez has been helping me process the anticipatory anxiety, and the prosecutor has assured me that I won't have to interact with Jason directly. We'll be there to support you," Eleanor promised. "Actually," Abigail hesitated, "that's what I wanted to discuss. I'd prefer to handle this independently. It's part of taking responsibility for my choices." Eleanor studied her daughter's face, recognizing a new maturity there. "If you're sure." "I am. Dr. Martinez thinks it's an important step in my recovery, facing this without leaning on you and Dad." She smiled weakly. "Besides, it would be too hard on Dad to sit through testimony about what happened to you." Their conversation was interrupted as Lily suddenly stood up, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. "Someone's coming," she announced, pointing toward the main entrance of the foundation grounds. Moments later, a black sedan appeared on the driveway, moving slowly as if the driver was searching for something. Robert tensed, instinctively moving closer to Eleanor. "Are we expecting anyone?" he asked. Eleanor shook her head. "Not that I'm aware of." The car pulled to a stop and a distinguished-looking man in his 60s emerged, studying a piece of paper in his hand. He approached the cottage with measured steps. "Excuse me," he called. "I'm looking for Lily Johnson." Samuel, who had noticed the visitor from the workshop and hurried over, stepped protectively in front of his daughter. "I'm her father. Can I help you?" The man smiled, extending his hand. "Dr. William Rosenberg from the Parker Institute for Intuitive Studies. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but I've been trying to contact you for several weeks." "Contact us about what?" Samuel asked warily. Dr. Rosenberg glanced at Lily, who was watching him with curious intensity. "Your daughter's remarkable abilities. News of what happened with Mrs. Harrington reached our research team. We specialize in studying heightened perceptual capabilities, like those your daughter demonstrates. Robert moved forward. How exactly did you hear about a private family matter? Medical anomalies of Mrs. Harrington's nature are tracked in research databases, Dr. Rosenberg explained. When I read about a case where GH45 effects were reversed through unconventional intervention, I made inquiries. Atlantic Medical Center mentioned a young girl with unusual perceptual abilities. Dr. Winters wouldn't breach confidentiality, Eleanor said firmly. She didn't provide details, Dr. Rosenberg assured them, just confirmed that a young girl had somehow detected vital signs that sophisticated medical equipment had missed. I did the rest of the research myself. Samuel crossed his arms. And what exactly do you want with my daughter? To offer her an opportunity, Dr. Rosenberg replied. The Parker Institute has a program for exceptional young people with heightened intuitive capabilities. We provide specialized education that nurtures these gifts while ensuring normal childhood development. You make it sound like she has superpowers, Samuel said skeptically. Dr. Rosenberg smiled. Nothing supernatural, Mr. Johnson, just an extraordinary neural configuration that allows her to process sensory information differently than most people. Our research suggests such abilities often have genetic components and can be developed with proper training. During this exchange, Lily had been studying the visitor with characteristic intensity. Suddenly, she spoke. You lost someone you couldn't save. That's why you started looking for people like me. Dr. Rosenberg's professional demeanor faltered momentarily. How did you... Your watch, Lily pointed. You keep touching it when you talk about abilities, and there's a picture inside. I saw when you checked the time earlier. The doctor opened the vintage pocket watch, revealing a small photograph of a young woman. My daughter, he said quietly. She had similar gifts but didn't understand them. Without guidance, she became overwhelmed by what she perceived. We lost her 20 years ago. I'm sorry, Lily said simply. That's why I founded the Institute, Dr. Rosenberg continued, to help young people like her, like you, understand and develop their unique perceptual abilities. Samuel placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. We appreciate your interest, Dr. Rosenberg, but Lily's well-adjusted and thriving in her current environment. Of course, the doctor nodded. I'm not suggesting removing her from her family or community. Our programs are designed to supplement regular education, not replace it. Perhaps you could visit the Institute, see our work firsthand before making any decisions. Before Samuel could refuse, Robert stepped forward. The Harrington Foundation is always interested in innovative educational approaches. Perhaps we could discuss a potential collaboration that would benefit Lily and other exceptional children. Dr. Rosenberg's expression brightened. That would be extraordinary, Mr. Harrington. As the adults continued their discussion, Lily slipped away to sit beside Abigail, who had remained quiet during the exchange. He's telling the truth, Lily said confidently, about wanting to help. Abigail studied the remarkable child who had saved her mother and indirectly herself. You always see right to the heart of things, don't you? Lily shrugged. Not always, but I'm getting better at understanding what I see. She tilted her head, studying Abigail with that penetrating gaze. You're different now. The darkness around you is gone. I'm trying to be better, Abigail admitted. I know, Lily said simply. That's why the light's coming back. The courtroom hummed with tension as Abigail Harrington took the stand. Despite the well-tailored navy suit that projected confidence, her hands trembled slightly as she was sworn in. From the gallery, Eleanor watched her daughter with a mixture of concern and pride. Despite Abigail's insistence on handling this alone, Eleanor couldn't bear to let her face this ordeal without silent support. Robert had refused to attend, the wounds still too raw. I believe in her recovery, he had said that morning. But I can't sit there and listen to the details again. Eleanor understood. Their marriage had weathered the unimaginable, but some scars remained tender to the touch. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, approached the witness stand. Ms. Harrington, please describe your relationship with the defendant, Jason Matthews. Abigail's gaze flickered briefly to Jason, who sat at the defense table, his once charming face now set in a cold mask. 6 months in detention had stripped away his polished veneer, revealing the calculated manipulator beneath. "We met at a charity gala for the Harrington Foundation," Abigail began, her voice steadier than Eleanor expected. "Jason approached me, said he'd noticed me across the room. He was charming, attentive, interested in everything I had to say." "And how did the relationship progress?" "Quickly," Abigail admitted. "Looking back, I can see he was love-bombing, showering me with attention, texts, surprise gifts, making grand romantic gestures that seemed spontaneous but were carefully calculated." "Objection," Jason's attorney interjected. "Speculation about the defendant's intentions." "Sustained," the judge ruled. "Please stick to observable facts, Miss Harrington." The prosecutor nodded. "When did things begin to change?" "About 2 months in," Abigail continued. "Jason began suggesting that my friends were jealous of our relationship, that they were speaking badly about him behind my back. He showed me texts, which I later learned were fabricated, that seemed to prove they disliked him." "And you believed him?" "Yes, he was so convincing, so hurt by their apparent betrayal. Gradually, I started seeing them less, then not at all." Abigail's voice caught. "That's a classic isolation technique, I understand now. Cut the victim off from their support system. What about your relationship with your parents, particularly your mother?" Here, Abigail paused, gathering herself. "Jason began making subtle comments about how controlling my mother was, how she manipulated my father, how she was jealous of younger women, including me. At first, I defended her, but he was persistent. He would point out innocuous comments she made and twist their meaning, until I began seeing threats and control where there were none." From the gallery, Eleanor watched her daughter's testimony with a heavy heart. The systematic manipulation was painfully clear in retrospect, but at the time none of them had recognized the danger. The prosecutor continued methodically, establishing the pattern of coercive control that had culminated in the plot against Eleanor. As Abigail described how Jason had convinced her that her mother was secretly changing her trust fund provisions, tears streamed down her face. "He showed me documents, forged I know now, indicating that my mother was planning to divert my inheritance to the foundation unless I broke up with Jason. He convinced me she saw him as a threat to her control over the family fortune, and that led to the plan to incapacitate your mother." Abigail nodded, wiping tears. "Jason said he had access to a compound that would make her ill enough to be hospitalized for a few days. During that time, we could enact an emergency provision in the trust, another fabrication, that would release funds if the primary trustee was medically incapacitated." "Did you know the true nature of GH45? "No," Abigail's voice broke. "He told me it would cause flu-like symptoms requiring brief hospitalization. I never imagined, never intended." She composed herself. "But that doesn't excuse what I did. I accept full responsibility for my actions." By the time the cross-examination began, Eleanor could see Abigail's emotional exhaustion. Jason's attorney attempted to portray her as the manipulator, suggesting she had masterminded the plot and was now shifting blame to save herself. But Abigail remained steady, acknowledging her culpability while clearly outlining the systematic psychological manipulation that had led to her participation. When finally dismissed, Abigail stepped down from the witness stand with quiet dignity. As she passed the defense table, Jason leaned forward and whispered something that made her falter momentarily. Then she straightened her shoulders and continued without looking back. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Eleanor waited. When Abigail emerged, she looked surprised, then relieved to see her mother. "You came," she said simply. "Of course I did," Eleanor replied, embracing her daughter. "You were very brave in there." "Not brave," Abigail shook her head. "Just truthful, finally. It still doesn't feel like enough." As they walked toward the exit, Abigail hesitated. "When I passed Jason, he whispered that no one would believe me, that I'd always be known as the girl who tried to harm her mother." She looked at Eleanor with vulnerable eyes. "What if he's right? What if I can never make amends for what I almost did to you?" Eleanor guided her daughter to a quiet bench away from curious onlookers. "Redemption isn't something you achieve once and it's done, Abigail. It's a path you walk every day with each choice you make." "Dad may never forgive me," Abigail said quietly. "Give him time," Eleanor advised. "And remember, forgiveness is separate from consequences. You're facing the consequences of your actions through the legal system and your therapeutic work. Forgiveness, both from others and for yourself, will come in its own time." They sat in companionable silence until Abigail's counselor from the residential facility arrived to escort her back. As they parted, Abigail squeezed her mother's hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," Eleanor promised, "no matter what." Later that evening, as autumn twilight settled over Newport, Eleanor found Robert in his study, pretending to review Foundation documents while actually staring into space. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "She did well today," Eleanor said. "Took responsibility while clearly explaining the manipulation. The prosecutor believes Jason will be convicted on all counts." Robert nodded absently. "Good. He deserves to face consequences." "As does Abigail," Eleanor said carefully. "Which she is doing with remarkable courage." Robert finally looked up. "I know you want me to forgive her, Eleanor. I'm trying. I want you to heal," she corrected gently. "Both of you. The forgiveness will follow naturally." A soft knock interrupted them. Lily stood in the doorway dressed in pajamas decorated with stars, a book clutched to her chest. "Dad says I should ask if it's too late for stargazing," she announced. "We found a constellation that looks like Professor the Cat." Eleanor smiled, grateful for the young girl's impeccable timing. "Dad's never too late for stargazing. Right, Robert?" Something in Robert's expression softened as he regarded the child who had irrevocably changed their lives. "Absolutely right. Let me get the telescope." Soon, they were on the back lawn, the three of them huddled around the telescope while Samuel brought hot chocolate. The simple normalcy of the moment felt precious after the emotional intensity of the day. "There," Lily pointed excitedly. "See how those stars make his whiskers? And that bright one is his eye." Robert adjusted the telescope. "I see it. Professor the Celestial Cat watching over us all." "Stars are like people," Lily observed, sipping her cocoa. "Some shine really bright and some are quieter, but they're all important to the pattern." Eleanor exchanged a glance with Robert over the girl's head. "That's very insightful, Lily." "Dr. Rosenberg says I notice patterns others miss," Lily said matter-of-factly. "That's why I knew your heart was still beating when others couldn't tell. I saw the pattern wasn't finished yet." Robert's hand found Eleanor's in the darkness, squeezing gently. The simple touch conveyed volumes. Gratitude for her presence, acknowledgement of how nearly he had lost her, recognition of the extraordinary child who had changed everything. "How are you enjoying your sessions at the Parker Institute?" Eleanor asked, knowing that Lily now attended specialized classes there twice weekly while maintaining her regular schooling. "It's fun," Lily replied. "There are other kids like me. Different, but similar too. Yesterday we practiced listening to heartbeats from across the room." "That sounds unusual," Robert commented. Lily shrugged. "Dr. Rosenberg says we're not doing anything supernatural, just learning to use our senses better than most people do. Like how some people have really good hearing or can smell things others can't." Samuel joined them, settling on the grass beside his daughter. "The program has been good for her. She's more confident about her abilities, less worried about seeming strange to other children. And the Harrington Foundation Scholarship Program is benefiting from the partnership as well," Robert added. "Dr. Rosenberg's assessment protocols have helped us identify other children with unique perceptual gifts who might otherwise be overlooked." The conversation flowed easily under the canopy of stars, touching on the Institute, the Foundation's expanding programs, and Samuel's new initiatives for the grounds. No one mentioned Abigail or the trial, yet her presence hovered in the spaces between words, not as a source of pain, but as part of the complex tapestry of their shared experience. Later, after Lily and Samuel had returned to their cottage, Robert and Eleanor lingered on the lawn, his arm around her shoulders as they contemplated the night sky. "I received a letter from Abigail today," Robert said suddenly. "She asked permission to develop an educational program for the Foundation, focusing on recognizing and resisting coercive control." Eleanor turned to face him, hope rising. "What did you say?" "I haven't responded yet." He sighed heavily. "Part of me wants to keep her at arm's length forever, but another part recognizes that she's trying to transform her mistake into something meaningful." "That's a form of redemption," Eleanor observed. "Yes." Robert was quiet for a long moment. "I told you once that forgiving her would take time. Perhaps it's time I took a step in that direction." Eleanor rested her head against his shoulder, gratitude washing over her. "One step at a time is all anyone can ask." "She's still our daughter," Robert acknowledged, echoing Eleanor's words from months earlier. Despite everything. Because of everything, Eleanor corrected gently. What happened nearly destroyed us all, but look what's emerging from those ashes. Abigail's growing wisdom, our work with the Parker Institute, the lives being changed through the foundation. Even our marriage is stronger for having faced the unimaginable together. Robert contemplated this, his gaze returning to the stars. Lily would say it's all part of the pattern. Lily would be right, Eleanor smiled. Our wise little stargazer. They stood together in companionable silence, the events of the past year settling into perspective beneath the vast cosmic panorama. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but it was illuminated by forgiveness, understanding, and the extraordinary perception of a child who had seen beyond appearances to the truth that saved them all. Tomorrow, Robert said finally, I'll write back to Abigail. Tell her I'd like to hear more about her program idea. Eleanor's heart swelled with quiet joy. It wasn't complete reconciliation, but it was a beginning. A constellation taking shape, one star at a time. 1 year to the day after Eleanor's miraculous revival, the grand ballroom of the Harrington Foundation headquarters glowed with soft lighting and elegant floral arrangements. The annual charity gala had been transformed into a dual celebration, the launch of the Foundation's new Perception and Protection Initiative and the silent acknowledgement of Eleanor's second chance at life. Eleanor stood at the entrance, graciously welcoming Newport's elite in a sapphire gown that complemented her now fully restored vitality. Beside her, Robert maintained a dignified presence, his hand occasionally finding the small of his wife's back in a gesture of affection and protective support. The turnout is remarkable, commented Dr. Catherine Winters, who had arrived with her husband. Half of Rhode Island's medical community is here, along with supporters from across the country, Eleanor added. The initiative has resonated more deeply than we anticipated. The Perception and Protection Initiative represented the Harrington Foundation's most ambitious project yet, a comprehensive program combining cutting-edge perceptual research from the Parker Institute with practical education about recognizing manipulation and coercive control. What had begun as Abigail's tentative proposal had evolved into a multifaceted initiative that would reach schools, community centers, and healthcare facilities nationwide. Speaking of perception, Dr. Winters smiled, where is our young miracle worker tonight? As if on cue, Lily appeared, looking both sophisticated and endearingly young in a modest emerald dress. At 11, she had grown taller over the past year, but her most striking development was her quiet confidence. Regular sessions at the Parker Institute had helped her understand and refine her unusual perceptual abilities, transforming what might have been seen as oddity into recognized gift. Dr. Winters, Lily exclaimed, offering a poised handshake. Dad and I were just in the exhibit hall. The interactive displays are amazing. You can experience what it's like to have different types of perception. Your contribution to those exhibits was invaluable, Eleanor told her warmly. No one else could explain heightened sensory awareness so clearly. Lily shrugged, characteristically modest. I just told them how I experience things. Dr. Rosenberg did the complicated part, translating it into experiences others could understand. Samuel joined them, remarkably comfortable in his tuxedo after a year of moving in the Harrington's social circles. As the Foundation's now executive director of community engagement, he had proven himself not only capable, but innovative, developing programs that bridged Newport's economic divide. The governor just arrived, he informed Robert, along with the state education commissioner. Excellent, Robert nodded. Their support will be crucial for implementing the school-based components of the initiative. As the ballroom filled with guests, Eleanor observed the extraordinary transformations a year had wrought. Where once she had moved through such events on autopilot, now she felt profoundly present, grateful for each handshake and conversation. Robert, too, had changed, still commanding in business matters, but softer in personal interactions, more willing to acknowledge vulnerability. And then there was Abigail, who had just entered the ballroom. She paused at the entrance, uncertainty flickering across her face. This was her first major public appearance since the trial, which had concluded with Jason receiving a 15-year sentence for his crimes. Abigail's own legal journey had ended with probation, continued therapy and community service, all of which she had embraced with genuine commitment. The murmurs that rippled through the crowd at her appearance weren't lost on Eleanor. Despite the Foundation's carefully crafted public narrative, focusing on manipulation and coercive control rather than the specific events involving Eleanor. Newport society knew enough to fuel endless speculation. Robert tensed beside Eleanor as he spotted their daughter. Over the past year, their relationship had evolved from estrangement to cautious reconnection. Weekly dinners had progressed to Abigail's limited involvement with the foundation, culminating in her central role developing the educational components of tonight's celebrated initiative. Yet fragile spaces remained between them, moments when the memory of betrayal cast shadows over their tentative reconciliation. "I should greet her," Eleanor said softly, touching her husband's arm. Robert nodded, his expression complex. "We both should." Together they crossed the ballroom to where Abigail stood, elegant in understated black, her posture reflecting the therapeutic work she'd undertaken. Grounded, present, no longer seeking approval in every glance. "You came," Eleanor embraced her daughter warmly. "I almost didn't," Abigail admitted quietly, "but this program is too important to miss because of my discomfort." "Your work on the educational modules has been exceptional," Robert said, his tone professional but not cold. The Foundation's board was unanimous in their approval. Abigail's eyes brightened at this acknowledgement. "Thank you. That means a lot." The potentially awkward moment was interrupted by Lily, who approached with her characteristic directness. "Your presentation is amazing, Abigail. I just toured it with Dad. The way you explain how manipulation works, it makes so much sense." "Thanks, Lily," Abigail smiled, genuine warmth replacing her nervousness. "Your input was invaluable. No one understands perception like you do." As the evening progressed, Eleanor watched with quiet joy as the varied elements of their improbable extended family navigated the event. Samuel confidently discussing community programs with potential donors. Lily charming the governor with her precocious insights. Robert and Abigail, tentatively but genuinely, presenting the initiative's vision to the assembled press. Dr. Rosenberg found Eleanor during a quiet moment. "Quite remarkable, isn't it?" he observed, following her gaze to where Lily was demonstrating a perceptual exercise to fascinated guests. "To think that all of this grew from that single moment of extraordinary perception." "It still feels miraculous," Eleanor admitted. "Not just Lily recognizing I was still alive, but everything that's flowed from that moment. The Foundation's new direction, Abigail's transformation, our partnership with your institute, as if that one act of seeing beyond appearances continues to ripple outward." "Perception shapes reality," Dr. Rosenberg nodded. "Lily saw what others missed in that chapel, and now thousands will benefit from programs teaching similar awareness, not just of physical cues like she detected in you, but of the subtle signs of manipulation and control that can entrap vulnerable people like my daughter," Eleanor said softly. "Exactly. Abigail's contribution to this initiative is particularly powerful because she speaks from experience. Her modules on recognizing love bombing and isolation tactics are the most effective I've seen in 20 years of research." The evening culminated with Robert's address to the assembled guests. Standing at the podium, he surveyed the room with the confidence of a man accustomed to commanding attention. Yet there was a new quality to his presence, a humility that had been absent before his family's ordeal. "Distinguished guests, friends, supporters of the Harrington Foundation, thank you for joining us on this significant evening." His voice carried through the ballroom. "The Perception and Protection Initiative represents not just a new program for our foundation, but a new understanding of human vulnerability and resilience." Eleanor watched from the side of the stage, pride swelling as her husband continued. "Many of you know that our family experienced a profound crisis last year. What fewer know is how that crisis transformed our understanding of human perception, manipulation, and the extraordinary capacity for both harm and healing that exists in human relationships." A hush fell over the crowd as Robert departed from the expected script. "Tonight, I want to publicly acknowledge 4 people whose perception and courage made this initiative possible." He gestured toward the side of the stage. Dr. William Rosenberg, whose groundbreaking research into perceptual differences is revolutionizing how we understand human cognition. The distinguished doctor nodded in acknowledgement as applause filled the room. Samuel Johnson, whose practical wisdom and community insight have ensured our programs reach those who need them most. regardless of economic status. Samuel, unaccustomed to such recognition, stood straighter as the applause continued. My daughter Abigail Harrington, who transformed her own painful experience with manipulation into educational tools that will protect countless others. A momentary hesitation rippled through the audience before the applause resumed, now accompanied by murmurs of surprise at this public acknowledgement. And finally, Robert's voice softened, a remarkable young woman named Lily Johnson, whose extraordinary perception saved my wife's life, and in doing so, set in motion everything we celebrate tonight. Lily, standing beside her father, received the thunderous applause with characteristic composure, neither seeking nor shying from the attention. The Perception and Protection Initiative grew from a simple truth, Robert continued after the applause subsided. What we perceive shapes what we believe, and what we believe determines how we act. By enhancing perception, teaching people to see beyond appearances, to recognize manipulation, to trust their inner knowing, we can prevent tragedy and foster genuine connection. As Robert concluded his speech and the formal program transitioned to dancing and continued networking, Eleanor found herself drawn to a quiet corner of the ballroom. From this vantage point, she could observe the extraordinary tapestry of relationships that had formed from the threads of near tragedy. Robert, deep in conversation with the governor but regularly glancing toward her, his love evident even across a crowded room. Abigail explaining an educational module to interested donors, her hard-won wisdom informing every word. Samuel, effortlessly bridging social divides as he introduced community partners to potential supporters. And Lily, demonstrating a perceptual exercise with the poise of someone twice her age, her unique gifts now recognized as valuable rather than merely unusual. It's a beautiful gathering, came a voice beside her. Eleanor turned to find Catherine Winters, the doctor who had first identified the compound in her system and set the investigation in motion. More beautiful than I could have imagined, Eleanor agreed. You know, Catherine said thoughtfully, in all my years of medicine, I've never witnessed a case quite like yours. Not just the medical aspects, though those were extraordinary, but the way healing rippled outward from that initial crisis. Eleanor nodded, understanding exactly what the doctor meant. From the darkest moment came the greatest light. Your foundation's new initiative will save lives, Catherine said with conviction. People who might have been lost to manipulation and control will find their way back, just as Abigail did. That's the greatest gift to emerge from all of this, Eleanor agreed, transforming personal tragedy into collective protection. As the evening drew to a close, the various members of their unconventional family gathered near the main doors. Robert, with newfound openness, placed a tentative hand on Abigail's shoulder, a gesture of reconciliation more powerful than words. Samuel and Lily stood nearby, no longer employees and beneficiaries, but essential parts of the Harrington extended family. Quite a year, Samuel observed quietly. Quite a transformation, Eleanor corrected gently, for all of us. As they prepared to depart, Lily suddenly paused, her head tilted in that characteristic way that signaled her perception had detected something others missed. What is it? Robert asked, familiar now with her intuitive moments. Lily smiled, her young face illuminated with wisdom beyond her years. Just noticing the patterns of light between us. They're stronger now, connecting everyone, like constellations. The adults exchanged glances, understanding that Lily perceived something beyond ordinary vision, the invisible bonds that had formed between them all, strengthened by shared experience and mutual growth. Constellations, Eleanor repeated softly. I like that. Individual stars forming something greater together than any could be alone. As they stepped into the Newport night, the sky above them brilliant with actual stars, Eleanor felt a profound sense of completion. From the chapel where death had been miraculously reversed to this moment of collective purpose, their journey had come full circle. The perception that had saved her life had expanded to save others, rippling outward in ever-widening circles of awareness and protection. The Foundation's new initiative would reach thousands, perhaps millions, teaching them to see beyond appearances, to recognize manipulation, to trust their inner knowing. From the darkness of betrayal had emerged an unexpected light, a beacon of hope and healing that would illuminate countless lives beyond their own. And it had all begun with a single moment of extraordinary perception when a young girl saw life where others perceived only its absence, setting in motion a transformation none of them could have imagined. As Robert's arm encircled her waist and Lily's small hand slipped into hers, Eleanor gazed upward at the cosmic panorama above Newport. Like the stars themselves, their individual journeys had converged to form a constellation of purpose, separate yet connected, each illuminating the others, together creating a pattern of light visible even in the darkest night.